exams, but also mainly more confident in English and happier to speak and write using vocabulary. So hopefully that sounds good. And as I was researching this one, I wanted to know about memory and so here is what he found. And on the screen, you've got how much people could remember up here. So at the beginning, they've got everything. That's where they first encounter the words. And then we have the graph going down the time. Now, you can see this really steep drop at the beginning. I wonder if you can guess, what is this time interval here? So when do we forget? What time? Is it a long time? Let me know in the chat. So what's that first time interval? Look, that's the first 20 minutes. So I think that's pretty amazing. Something to think about when we're teaching and we're thinking that everything's going in. Actually, a lot of it can go out unless we are very careful. So a couple more things from this research that I'd like to share with you. And I'm going to share these as statements. And I want you to read the statement and choose the correct option in each statement. And again, put this in the chat box once you have your ideas. Are you ready? So for example, the first one, do you think it's memories strengthen over time or memories weaken over time? Quite obvious, that one, I think. So read through and choose the correct option. And I can see lots of answers coming in. I can see all your answers. I know you can't see everyone else's, but I can see them all. There we go. So lots. Everybody's got the first one so far. Wonderful. And moving through the other ones. That's great. Okay. So first one. There we go. So memories weaken over time. We know this, right? Nothing new there. If we learn something new, but then we don't make any attempt to relearn it, we lose it over time. We remember less and less as the hours of the days of the weeks go by, right? The next one, the biggest drop in retention, we'll remember the curve that we've just seen. That's right, so very soon after learning, almost immediately after learning. So if we don't do any reviewing or reinforcement, then our ability to retain that information is just going to drop very, very sharply. Already, I know I'm thinking about what does this mean for my teaching, right? Number 3. There we go. It's easier to remember things that have meaning. And what the Ebbinghaus said in his research is that he thought probably people were forgetting things because they didn't have a lot of meaning. He was teaching them some nonsense syllables. And I think this is true, that we remember better if something has a meaning for us, right? Or it's something that's very interesting for us. If it's something that's not meaningful or not interesting, then we're more likely to forget it, probably. And number 4, yes, there we go. The way something is presented affects learning, right? If something's well organised and logical, it can be made more memorable for us. I think it can be made easier to learn than something that's very haphazard. And the last one, I can see some people saying how you look. That's an interesting one, but it's actually how you feel. So you might have heard about Krashen and about his work on affective factors and the way that we feel, and lowering stress is a better way to learn and a better way to remember. Perhaps thought as well, he thought these physiological factors like stress and lack of sleep actually affect our ability to remember. All right, yes. And somebody's saying there that's the most challenging thing, Maria. True, because as teachers we don't perhaps have a lot of control over, how stressed our kids are in our classes, how much sleep they're getting, but we can make the classroom as comfortable as possible for them, can't we? Yes, Rosario. Theory is easy, then practice. All right, so let's make this a bit more practical. And let's think about how this can help us as teachers. Any thoughts on this? How can this information help us? Angelica says it applies to everyone. Monica's mentioning neuro-linguistics there. It can help us plan our lessons, says Maria. Thank you. We have to repeat things, Paola. Yes, use it or lose it. Absolutely, Shireen. Irina, we need to focus on revising. Absolutely. Really good. Yeah, absolutely. I can see we're on the same track here. And just a reminder, do put these in the chat, not the Q&A. And I can see them all, and I'll try to mention as many as we can. Roshana, we can model our teaching around these concepts. I think we can. Let's have a look at how we can do that. So for myself, I drew conclusions for how this helps me in terms of teaching vocabulary. So first of all, I want to make sure that my learning is meaningful for my students. So this is about having a context, a situation, a topic that's interesting to them, that's relevant to their lives, that's personalised. The second thing I thought is these affective factors. So that last point, making sure that we create a really comfortable and safe and enjoyable learning environment for our students, right? We want learning to be fun. We don't want it to feel frightening or risky. And then the last one is about, as you've all said, review, recycle, develop games. So use spaced learning so that we don't only encounter new words and new phrases once. Our learners are going to be more likely to remember them if they encounter and they interact with them several times. So that's what this graph shows. So here's the curve. If we only present something, we only talk about something once. So there's the forgetting curve. Lots of it has gone. But if we review it after some time, we don't lose so much. And if we review it more than once, as you can see, I quite like the way this represents, and we're more likely to help students to retain that information. All right. And again, yes, I can just go back to your tips here. We've got using it. We need to keep this in mind. Motivation is important. Yes, thank you for all these points. Really great. Reinforcement, absolutely. Review and revise. Okay. So the next thing I want to talk about is to channel in now to thinking about teaching vocabulary. So we've gone from some broad psychological research and thinking about learning in general. And now let's think about teaching vocabulary and some useful tips here. And then I've put tips in the chat if you can add some. These are mine. So first of all, I think we need to do our own homework, don't we, when we're teaching something. Of course, we're teaching vocabulary at B1 level. Might be very familiar to us. We just need to make sure we're really clear on how we're going to get meaning across to our students. What information do they need to know about the form, pronunciation? What are they going to find difficult? Maybe we need to think of some example sentences. So if we do our homework, we're better prepared to help students with some possible problems that might come up. And I think this includes what we know about our students and what they find difficult and easy as well. The second one we've mentioned already, and I will be saying it again, really important, provide a context that we are going to teach a vocabulary in. So it might be a text, reading text, listening, it might be a video, we might use pictures, we might tell a story. There's something that's going to give meaning to those words and phrases and help our learners to understand them, right? Next one, I think rather than assuming children don't know much, maybe they do know this word in English. So rather than going in aiming to teach, why don't we go in aiming to find out what they know and then build on that and fill the gaps. So using elicitation, again, using images, brainstorming, finding out what kids know, sometimes surprising, isn't it? Number 4 is linked to the first one. So it's giving our students what they need really to be able to understand and then use the language, isn't it? So examples, checking understanding, for example, like can you understand, thinking about the parts of speech. So if we're teaching nouns, they need to know if it's countable or uncountable, because then they can use it in a sentence. If we're looking at some verbs, is it regular or irregular? And I think we can help our students here become more independent as well and help them to find this information themselves. I look at words in context. I'm learning how to look at words on the internet in a reliable source like the Cambridge Learners Dictionary, for example. And the next one, so we're presenting here, we want to make sure learners have understood. So thinking about how we will do this in class, maybe checking questions, asking them for more examples, maybe setting a task where we can really see if they've understood by the way that they use it in the task. I've got a couple more, and I keep saying this and I'm going to keep saying it, but helping learners to really use the new language. So giving plenty of opportunities to practice, not just to memorise and remember the word and produce it, but to use it in a communicative way. So games, activities, tasks. And remember here, the space to practice. So we want to have multiple opportunities, don't we? Maybe at the end of the class we'll have a review, and maybe the next day we'll have a little review, even a couple of minutes. It's going to help to keep those words inside. And the last one, I've put learn together here, and I think this is really important in all parts of teaching, but it's about not being perfect, and that counts for our students and for us as well. So let's not expect our students to remember everything, and know that we're all human and we can't keep everything in our minds all the time, to help them as much as we can through the strategies we've spoken about. And also for us to be willing to learn as well. And when things perhaps don't go as well as we'd like them to do, or a student asks about a word that's not part of your class, and you think, you're stuck for a moment, how do I explain this word? Is to learn together. Let's find out together. Let's find a dictionary online, and the pronunciation of that, good question, can we find this information together? I think that's important too. All right, so let's move to the next part now. And we're going to look at some practice activities. So just now I've been talking about good ideas for how we teach and introduce and give students information about new vocabulary and how to make sure they understand. And now we're going to look at some activities to get them using the new language. If we think about that spaced learning, these might be activities that you use after you've taught it, after you've had your first lesson, the presentation, maybe the next lesson or the next week. I want to use language again in the same lesson. And as we go through, I'll be asking you for your thoughts and your reflections, and if you would adapt this activity, or maybe you can tell us about a different activity that you use to practice this vocabulary. I can see already Maria's in there going, role play. That's it. And Enrique, thank you for that comment. Enrique said, I tell my learners we're here to improve. We're looking for improvement, not perfection. I really like that. It's a really positive way to look at it. Thank you so much. So the activities today, I'm not sure if Kate mentioned this at the beginning, but you're going to get this at the end as well. I'm going to share a link to a free booklet where you can have access to all of the activities that I'll show you, with any materials that they need, although most of them are minimal materials, and instructions on how to use them. So you'll get this at the end once we've seen all the vocabulary. And all the topics in these activities are designed to practice are taken from the B1 preliminary for schools vocabulary list. So you can rest assured that the vocabulary is relevant to your students if you're teaching at this level. And there's a question I can ask Maria: is the vocabulary list useful for 2022 exams? Yes, it is, Maria, absolutely. So just to show you here what's in that booklet, it's coming soon. So the tips we've talked about, they're in there if you want a reminder of them, and also all of the activities and how they link to different parts of the exam. Some are very quick, a quick 10-minute activity. Some of them are longer, so they might take a 45-minute lesson or part of your lesson. So let's start off with number one. And the way we're going to do this is I'm going to demonstrate and introduce the activity and then give you time to reflect afterwards on how you might use it, or the other activities that you do use. All right, let's get started. So here's our first one. This one's called How Do You Feel? And you can see on the screen some emojis. And our first part is to let me know in the chat what emotions can you see. What emotions these show? Not always easy. I can see emojis in the chat now. So I'm looking for adjectives. There we go. So clemmy, cheeky, Mahdi, happy, proud, confident, goofy. That's a nice one. Disgust, worried. There we go. Feeling blue. That's a nice one. All right, good. So here, this is the first thing I would do with students. So I'm reviewing some language here. I just want to see what they remember about these feelings adjectives. And the next part is to introduce a bit of speaking. So first of all, I will either elicit or present these sentence stems. So what makes you feel happy? I feel happy when I knit, for example. I love knitting, that's what I would say. Or running makes me feel peaceful. So the task is to choose an emotion and to write a sentence that's true for them. Yeah, it's all about adjectives, you're right. That's it. I can see there's even more emojis coming through in the chat. So students are writing sentences that are true for them. And then what? Well, now I'm going to put them into pairs. They're going to compare their sentence with their partner and see what they have in common. What makes you happy? I feel happy when I play football, and you? Oh no, I don't. They have to find something in common. So we've got some real meaningful communication going on here. And if none of their sentences are the same, well, they have to find something that is the same. So usually this gets students talking confident. What happens next? Well, once they've got something in common as pairs, then you're going to put them in a group of 4. And again, they need to find something in common. And you can see how that gets trickier, but also involves more communication. So there you go. There's that first activity. And I can see some of your responses to that in the chat. That's great. And I'm going to bring up reflection questions for this now. So remembering what we've done, what are your thoughts? How does this help learners prepare for B1 preliminary for schools exam? How could you make this activity easier or more challenging? Because I could see someone there saying it's too easy. Right, how would you make it more challenging? And perhaps you can think of a follow-up writing activity that might be relevant to the exam as well. So any suggestions? Nice from Gabriella. I'd say something about me before they work in pairs. It's nice to get to know a little bit about your teacher. Good idea, Gabriella. And then it's a model example, isn't it? What else do we have? Write the sentences on posters and put them on the walls. Very nice, Katerina. Fatima's done something similar and they enjoyed it. That's brilliant. And Mrs. Jinan says it's more challenging when done in groups. True. So this, you can see how it builds. It's like a pyramid discussion, isn't it? First work alone, and then pairs, and then groups. So Olga's got a suggestion about writing. Write a paragraph describing the last time you felt. I like it. All right. Well, I'm going to give my own suggestions here. And Alessandra saying, this is useful for the speaking part. Absolutely. So this, of course, it's useful for vocabulary, adjectives, feelings, but it's linked to speaking part 4, isn't it? Where students have to talk about their likes and their dislikes and their opinions. And if you do writing as well, you can link this into the writing exam. Now, how would I make this easier? Well, I think one way to help students organise their thoughts is to use perhaps a visual diagram, and students can put their sentences or things that are true for them in this part, and then compare it with their partner, and then find what they have in common. So that's a useful support for some students. And Huda has also said, write a short story about their feelings. That was my idea too. So this is just like in the exam, isn't it? The first sentence, it's a cold, dark night. I heard a strange noise, looked out the window and immediately felt. And you can see I'm giving them choice here. So they decide the emotion they want to put in their story, and then they create a short story around it. And I think that's important when we're talking about emotions. And I'm not insisting on students telling me what makes them feel sad or anxious. I think that can be a little bit risky. So leave it to students' choice about which emotions they choose to write and talk about. All right, well, lots and lots of responses to this. I'm just going to have a quick look at those. Somebody is talking about the importance of empathy and students understanding each other better. Really nice. Emotional intelligence. And Karine is talking about stories related to their own real life experience. Really nice. So going to a birthday party or visiting a zoo and how we felt. So if you can see my eyes moving over here, I'm actually reading. I can see literally hundreds of messages in the chat. I know you can't, but I can. So thank you. Please keep them coming. All right, let's move. Oh, before we move, just to let you know, and this is coming later, so the activities we're looking at today, you'll get the full instructions. You don't need to memorize or write them down, how to do them, how to differentiate, so to add extra support or challenge, and then how it might be adapted for another skill perhaps, or another vocabulary set. What should I pack? All right, you're going to talk about holidays. I think we all need a holiday at the moment. So imagine you're going on holiday to this place. I wish this was true. You're going here on holiday. What are you going to pack in your suitcase? Let me know in the chat. What would you take to this place on holiday? A swimsuit, says Atapon. Good idea. Clothes, good idea. Yes. Sunblock, thank you. Thinking about health, suntan lotion. Meghana, I can see your answers, don't worry. Yulia's bringing books. Daphne's bringing flip-flops. Sunglasses. So, I get so many people talking about sunscreen, really glad to see that. All right, so here's the activity. I'm going on holiday, but I'm not going to this beach. I'm going somewhere else. I've packed my suitcase. I'm going to show you what's in my suitcase now. Can you guess where I'm going on holiday? Have a look at my things I'm taking with me. What kind of holiday am I going to have? Hiking, camping, says Roshana, hiking. Simona, you've got the place. There you go, Kazakhstan. There's a big hint there, isn't there, at the bottom? That's right. So I'm going to go hiking and camping in Kazakhstan. So there's my model, there's my example for the student. Now I'm going to put my students into pairs. I want them to choose a place they want to go on holiday, choose the type of holiday, and decide what they're going to pack. They'll write their packing list just like I have, and then they'll work with another pair and show them or tell them what they've got in their suitcase. And just like you did now, their partners have to guess where they're going and what kind of holiday they're going to have. Is people still saying hiking? I'm taking my mobile, says Marcella. Yes, maybe not on holiday, I don't know. What comes after this? Well, this one's got some writing. So you can see here we've got an email asking, saying, I'm coming to visit you. What's the weather like? So see how familiar this is if you've been preparing your students for the exam. So students read the email and then they have to write a reply. So after they've done the thinking and the speaking already, this is going to be much easier because they've already got their ideas about what they're going to take. They just need to translate this now into writing. And then after I do this, I would get students to swap their writing, and then maybe we can have a bit of a peer review. They can read each other's emails and check that they've included all the information. So have they included the weather? Yes, get them to tick that on each other's papers. Have they included what clothes to bring? Good, underline the clothes in your partner's email. Have they mentioned activities? Yes, circle the activities. So that helps students to make sure they're answering the question. That will help them with exam strategy. And it's also good for peer feedback and detailed reading as well. And I've got a comment there from Gabrielle again, thank you. Yes, that's a nice one. During peer review, students can propose synonyms or more advanced vocabulary. Great. Giselle is saying, what happens for misspelled vocabulary words? Oh, that's a good question. That could be something that you get students to check for each other, or maybe it's something that you are also monitoring as students are writing, something that you could prompt them with, or perhaps notice some spellings, put them on the board, and everybody can correct together without names afterwards. Okay, so that was activity 2. Time to reflect now. Glad that was helpful, Abra. Thank you. Think about these questions again. I'd love to hear your ideas in the chat. Katerina is suggesting a spelling competition. Nice idea. What else do we have? Yes, so we've got practice for writing here. Yeah, that you're right, Simona. Helps them to organise their thoughts, Reem. It's also helping them learn to be independent. It could be descriptive writing too. It could be Vijaya. Fatima is suggesting listening to a podcast, developing listening skills. Why not? And listening about a holiday. That could be good. Great. So, in fact, there's so many ideas I can't keep up with. We've got collaborative writing, a different kind of writing. Remember the 5 W's, says Maria. What, when, where, why, and who. Really nice. And maybe they can present it before the class, says Huda. Super ideas. So, of course, the vocabulary focus here for B1 is clothes and accessories. We're also talking about holiday activities, so leisure and free time. It links to the speaking exam, speaking part 3, so making suggestions, responding to suggestions, discussing alternatives. Remember, they're working together to decide their packing list. And then we've got writing part 1, haven't we? Writing an email. Or if you decide to do creative writing, as someone has, you've got part 2 there as well. Ways to adapt or support students. So again, you might use a table to help them to organise their ideas before they start writing or speaking. And more challenging, says Simona, pick a random letter and answer it. Oh, I wonder, maybe you can tell us a bit more about that. Would you then have to have your words all beginning with that letter? I wonder. Oh, maybe you mean the letter that they write, the email that they write. That would be nice. And then they can write responses to the email. Perhaps something that you can let us know in the chat. Good idea. And some word clouds are great too. All right. Number 3. We're still on the topic of holidays because, you know, we need holidays, right? So this one's my perfect holiday. And a colleague introduced this to me when I did a teacher training session with her a couple of years ago. So we start this with Tic-Tac-Toe or Naughts and Crosses board. And here I'm going to ask my students to think of 3 ways to travel, 3 places to stay, and 3 things that you can do on holiday. I'm going to get ideas from students and I'm going to write their ideas on the board as they appear. There we go, and we've got some ideas coming in for you as well. And now students need to look at these. Imagine they're going on holiday and silently and individually choose what's their favourite. So for me, I would like to travel by horse. I'd like to stay in a cabin and go swimming. I think that would be a really lovely holiday. Yeah, it's like tic-tac-toe, Hannah. So I've chosen my 3 things. Once your students have had a minute to think about that on their own, then we have a whole class activity. And the aim is to find another student who wants the same kind of holiday as them. So I need to find someone else who likes travelling by horse, who likes swimming and staying in cabins. So this is quite a good, again, it's real communication. It's finding out, asking questions, answering, comparing. If they can't manage to find someone who likes 3 things, they can find someone who has 2 out of their 3 choices. And then they can sit down with their new partner or group, maybe there'll be 3 or 4 of them with the same holiday, and talk more about the holiday. So where are you going to go to do these things? How long are you going to go for? Do you want to invite anyone else with you? I don't know. How much spending money will you take? There you go. How long will you stay? So it's great also for putting students in groups. And I can see someone else has said, I use this with verbs as a way for students to find their partner. So maybe you have the infinitive and then the past tense or past participle and they have to find their partner. Really nice. And it's time to reflect now. So think about these questions again. Michaela, students can present their perfect holiday in front of the class. Why not? So after they've done that speaking, great, tell us about what did you decide? Where are you going? Tell us about your holiday. Really nice. And then they can write a story about that holiday, Valeria. Yes, so you brought writing into there as well. Really nice. Karina, yes, this is a live webinar. Marina says they can make a presentation. Why not? Write a group composition, says Vera. Describe the country, says Kuncho. Great, a cartoon, Sue thinks. A digital brochure, thank you for that. I've lost your name because it's gone so quickly, Elvira. Really nice. Maybe make something to show at home, Esther. Yeah, that's a lovely idea too. I thought maybe use pictures here as well. Why not? And get students excited and thinking about different types of holiday. We could also use this for, this also relates to, of course, it's the speaking exam, but I wanted to highlight, we've got part 4 here, so talking about opinions and experiences, but also part 3, where they're making suggestions, discussing alternatives. This is when they sit down in their group. So it's lovely speaking activity there. Okay, maybe you could have different topics, maybe food. What kind of food will you have? What sports will you do? Great. And someone said here, my students thought about an imaginary holiday and made PowerPoint presentations. Really nice. Monica says the best thing is using pictures and let them mime. Lovely. Mime what you're going to do on holiday. Really nice. Record a podcast, goodness me, so many. All right, I'm going to just take a moment now and have a look to see if we've got any questions in the Q&A. Gabriella, reverse it and make the class describe the place to the students. Why not? describe. Oh, Maria's putting feelings in. I like this. So let them describe a place and how they felt about it, putting things together. See, that's recycling too. You're putting different vocabulary sets together. Really nice. Ruth improves speaking and creativity. Lovely. So I'm reading out all your comments here. I can see them all. Thank you so much. Carson, you're going to do a role play. Oh, I like this, Maruch. Hide the descriptions in the classroom. Fun. Do it with a partner. It could be a warm-up, says Domenica. So students choose a picture and classmates have to describe the place without saying the word. Really nice. Yeah. Okay. All right. So this, just to let you know, and it's coming soon, but this is a worksheet that goes with this activity, and that's in the booklet that I'm going to share once we've had a look at the last two activities. And again, I think this is a useful way to add support, just to help students review those words at the beginning, remember the place words, maybe do a bit of pronunciation practice as well before we do the speaking activity. Okay, question number 5. Sorry, activity number 5 is spot the similarities. Now, we know spot the difference, and if you prepare your students for the Cambridge Young Learner examinations, you'll know that that's part of the speaking exam. This is different. Here we're going to try and find pictures that have things in common. So the first part of this is going to be, again, brainstorming, remembering the vocabulary that I've already taught students. The topic this time is things in a house. So first thing I will ask my students, they have a minute, as many things as you can, think of as many things as you can that you find in a house. So I get them maybe doing it individually or in pairs, doesn't matter. And then we're sharing this vocabulary together. So that's the quick review. Then the main part is I've got 2 pictures, and as you can see, they're both inside houses. So the first part was to help them to do this, and they need to find similarities. Now, this is easy for you. You can see both the pictures. With my students, I'm going to give them a picture each that they have to keep secret. Only find the similarities by describing their picture. So again, it's speaking, isn't it? Speaking part 2, describing that picture. So there's a boy. Oh no, there's a girl in mine. Oh, he's watching TV. She's looking at a screen. Okay, it's a screen. There's a similarity. You see how this can be quite a challenge. You can make this easier by allowing them to look at both pictures together. I find it does involve more speaking if they keep the pictures separate. So let's see if you found any similarities. Yes, tables, cupboard, what else? The wall colours are the same, Indira. Wow, that's great. And Hannah's found that one as well. There's windows in both. Well spotted, yes. And Eric, they do have to pay a lot of attention. You have to look at this really closely, especially when they're doing this without showing the picture. They really have to listen. And usually for this, I give them a time limit and see how many they've got. And the more creative, the better. So your thoughts on this? So practicing, we've already said, haven't we, about vocabulary of the home. Any other thoughts on this? What's the concentration, says Ben. Still finding similarities. The speaking test, Marinelli, yes. They use their imagination. Yeah, that's right, cousin. Okay. And people are still putting things that are in common between the pictures. Great. Yeah. I think one way I might make this easier as well is giving students a bit of thinking time. So I would put students in groups together looking at the same picture. So they only have one picture, maybe the picture of the boy watching football, and they're thinking together about how they would describe this, and then they're ready to work with a partner and describe it to them. So it's kind of that extra scaffold. All right, yeah, you mean I'd give them 2 photos or 2 things. And Valeria's thinking of a way to extend this. So questions, how do you use screens? What do you like doing to entertain yourself? Really nice. You're looking at those parts 3 and 4 of the speaking exam, really nice and personalised. Yeah, they can do a task against the clock, says Simona. Perhaps picture dictation, says Pinar. Really nice, and again, very detailed listening and very specific description. Really good, really nice ideas. Synonyms are popular today. Everybody's mentioning synonyms. I like that. Okay. And Isael, students can speak about how different the rooms are from theirs. Really nice. And again, a way to personalise and use descriptive language and comparatives. Great. I also thought it's useful to add in some functional language for this to help students to do the task. So here are some examples of phrases that we could elicit to help students to do this. And of course, the vocabulary, well, it depends what the pictures you use. You could use this for anything, couldn't you? Any vocabulary set, clothes, food and drink, the natural world, hobbies, anything. All right, it's time for the last activity. A silent movie scene. Whoops. So for this, the first thing I will do is set up 4 pieces of paper either on a flip chart or on different tables in the classroom. And the topic is going to be at the doctor's. And I'm telling students we're going to write a movie scene about the set in a doctor's surgery. But first, let's remember some vocabulary. Remember, this is always the first part, remembering the vocabulary and then using it. So here are my 4 flip charts. They'll walk around in pairs, remembering useful words and phrases that go with these topics. Sore throat, treatments, rest, drink honey, drink tea with honey, parts of the body, and then things that doctors say. This is helping them to get ready to write their movie script. So in pairs now, they're going to decide who's the patient, who's the doctor, what's the problem, what's the treatment, and then they're going to write their short movie scene. Okay? But here's the twist. Once they've done it and they've rehearsed it and they're ready to go, I say, oh, so I've got some bad news. We've had a budget reduction. We don't have any money now. It has to be a silent movie. So when you act out your movie scene, you have to really show the meaning. So now they have a little practice at that, and then they act out their scene to the rest of the class. So no speaking, acting out the dialogue that they've shown. So you get lots of drama here. You get headaches and sore throats, and the doctor saying, we need to take 3 pills for that. The rest of the students are guessing what's the problem, what's the treatment, and perhaps even what are they saying. That's a nice one too. So a way to add challenge to this is to give the students who are watching control over the movie. So you've got your remote control here. You can play the scene again if you want to watch again. You can pause, you can rewind, but try to watch it as many times as you like so you can try and write the script. Of course, this takes much longer, but students get so into this, trying to work out what they're saying, and then they can compare their ideas to the real script at the end. So there we go. That's our silent movie screen. Quite an involved there, but quite a lot of fun. It involves speaking and writing. Maria likes that one. Okay, so just a few reflection questions on that. Hannah says her students love acting. Magdalena, you use Jamboard for that, would you, for creating the scripts? Why not? Yeah. Really nice. And if you scroll up a little bit, you can find links to the booklet. Kate's there, which is a reminder of time, don't we? Kate, we're near the end now. We're wrapping up.
Thank you, everybody, for all your fantastic comments. Claire and I could see them. I know that you couldn't see them today, but I've also been trying to answer your questions in the Q&A box. But Claire, we've just got some time for you to answer some more specific questions. I'll also put the link back in the chat for anyone that can't see it in the chat box.
Sure.
Over to you, Claire.
Thank you. Yes, let me open up the chat, the questions. Okay, I've got suggestions there. What's the pros and cons of using Learner's L1 when teaching new vocabulary? Valeria, gosh, really good question. I think the pros can be if something is very difficult or will take a very long time, or they might not understand it if you present it in another way, then it can be helpful to use L1. I think it can be helpful to use L1 to check if they've understood. So you might present it through a picture or through a context or through a text. You think they've got it, but you can very quickly check by saying, what's this word in your language? So I think that's a good way. Students work harder if they're doing it all in the foreign language. That can be good, but also that can take a very long time sometimes. I think you have to balance out those things.
You have to use your judgment, don't you, for
Absolutely.
each activity, really?
Yeah. Is it better to use individual pictures for each word or a big one that includes all of them? I just found that one randomly. I like do you know what I really like, Valeria, is the ones that you get from the Cambridge Young Learner exams, that you get cartoons. They're really busy pictures and they've got so much stuff going on in them. You can get classroom posters. So personally for me,
classroom posters, aren't there?
Yeah. So I would say use those classroom posters. And I think they're also in the B1 vocabulary booklet as well. I'm not sure.
If you click on the there's on our website, I've put the link in the chat, but if you click on, I'll put it in again, there's a resources PDF, and that PDF actually has links to everything. So it's direct links to posters, to classroom activities, to this vocabulary booklet. I'll just put that one link in the chat so you've got it handy. Actually, could you forward your slides to the resource screen, and then we've got it on screen as well, if that's possible, Claire. There you go. If you click on this direct link, you can see links to everything, and like Claire was saying, the posters.
Yeah, I like a poster because it's got everything in there, and if it's a B1 level, it's got the vocabulary you need and you're teaching, so you've got the topic all there. You can go on the internet and find all the individual ones if you want, and there are flashcards. But I would say use your time wisely and have use a big picture. Okay, and a question from Esther. Does the content have to be different, or does there have to be a connection? Esther, I think it makes sense to present things in a topic because it helps students to make links, and it also means we can use one context for it. So at the doctors, we've got all of those vocabulary sets in there: health, body parts, what the doctor says, treatments, and other language will come in as well, and that's great. That's great. But I think it does make sense to have a main theme because it helps students to make links and to make it more memorable as well. Will I do one more, Kate, or are we done?
There's just time for one more. Thank you.
Yeah. How do I get the booklet we're seeing in the screen? It's in the chat.
And actually, just to finish off and say that as a reminder, you will be sent these slides after the webinar, and that will have the links in to this booklet, and you'll also be sent your certificate and a link to the recording, so you can watch certain activities again, you can watch the whole thing again, and there you go. The last slide you can see there has got the link, so I hope you find something useful there for you. And thank you again for everyone joining us from all around the world. And thank you again, Claire. Brilliant webinar. We had lots of really positive comments from people. So thank you. And we'll see you again in June, won't we? Where you'll be discussing writing for A2 Key for Schools and B1 Preliminary for Schools again. So
looking forward
we'll
to it.
See you all again in June.
Thanks. Bye, everyone.
Okay. Bye.